So from Tableau, go File, Open, and so look for that one. Sample Superstore Sales English extract.tde file, and click Open. That will open the data source for you. So there you have it. So that's it. It's as straightforward as that. So now we want to understand the data a little bit. So a couple of questions. How many observations are there? We already talked about this previously. So how many records are there? And then we will look at what is the level of granularity, or what that means. One record in the database, or what does that represent? Okay, so those are the two questions that we're going to try to answer. And of course, you can increase the number here. That will tell you how many observations there are. Or you can also do this. You can click this icon, and once again, if this goes up to 10,000, and then there is this arrow here. So we don't know whether it has 10,000 even or more than 10,000 records. So just type in a larger number. Type in 20,000. Okay, so now we know that 16,798 rows. So let's make a note of that. 16,798. Okay, we need to know that number to be able to determine the granularity. What is the grain of the data set? When you go down to the deepest level, which means one record. Okay, what does that mean? Okay. So now we answered the first question. Okay, the second question is what is the granularity? So we can look at the manage metadata for that. Okay, so click that. Okay. And then these are the variables. Of course, row ID is going to give us granularity, but row ID doesn't tell us anything. So row ID might as well not be something that you're not interested in that. You want to look at what one record represents, one individual record without any aggregation. So this is a sales database. So sales is there's something to do with sales, right? Now, customer name, okay, so if the database contains only one order for each customer, then maybe customer could be the granularity. Or if it is a customer database, then yes, customer would be a very good candidate for the level of detail. But here it is not, because one customer can have more than one order. So one customer can have several rows of data. So we can check that by you click the down arrow and click describe. So that will tell you, okay, so this domain for this field has 3,403 members. So we have totally 16,000 some records, but we have only 3,400 unique values for customer. So customer is not the level of detail, right?
What is the extract file?
Extract file is in the zip file that you
done. It is in the zip file. Okay.
Yeah. So did you extract the zip file?
Yes.
Okay,
is it TYD Superstore for TYD
samples?
Samples.
English. Okay. So it is sample Superstore sales English extract.
Yeah, I see.
You got it? Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. All right. So that's not it. What about order ID? So order ID is order number. So order number, so that is a good candidate for granularity, right? So each row represents one order. Okay, let's check that. So go to this card, and this has only 11,270 orders, even though the database has 16,000 some records. So that means you can have more than one row of data for a given order, right? So what could then define our level of detail? Well, see, there is item. So each order maybe has several items, right, in a given order. Okay, that is item. So now a given item may get ordered in different orders, so item cannot be the granularity of the database. So it is probably order number, item number. That combination is probably the granularity of this database. But we don't have a field that has that information, that combined information, right? So what we could do is to create a new column that contains that information. So let's go to sheet 1, and to do that you have to go to the sheet, you can't do it from the data. So analysis, create calculated field. Okay, so we're going to create a new field now. So we're going to get the order ID and put it together with the item number or item whatever, okay, and then see whether that will give us the most granular level of detail. So that's what we are trying to do. We are exploring to understand the data. So click that. So let's give a name, order item. Okay. And so now we want to put these two together, and that is in Excel you have a function for that called concatenate. Right? It puts things together. In Tableau, when you need to make sure that they are all text information, okay, then all you have to do is to do a plus. So plus will put the, it will join the information. So we can do order ID. So as I start typing, it gives me the fields that start with that string. So now I can select order ID and then plus item. Okay. So now it says the calculation contains errors, right? What is the source of this error? Now you see, order ID, even though it is a dimension, it is a number, it is a numerical value. Okay. An item is a string, it's ABC, which means it is string. So you cannot concatenate two different field types. So you have to convert. So let's and we want this to be a string text information. So we need to convert the order ID, which is a number, into text. Okay, and str is the function name for that. So if you put str. So now calculation is valid. Now I'm going to do one more thing, which is I'm going to add a hyphen to separate the order number from the item, so it will be easier to read. Okay, so now the calculation is valid. We have order item, right? So click OK, and the order item it's not calculated yet, so let's
it's right above your region. It is scroll down a little bit more.
Oh, there it is. Okay. All right. Okay, so now we can bring this in and then see how many marks there are. Okay. So now we know that that is it. So this is what we originally saw. Let's go back to, okay, I'm going to erase this. So let's go back to the data source. Okay. So remember, we checked how many rows there are in the data. So number of observations which was 16,798, right? So now order item 16,798, order item describe, oops, and 16,796. There is some problem here somewhere. Okay, so there are probably a couple of null items somewhere. Okay, so we have to check that out. We'll talk about null a little later. Supposed to be 16,798, right? But we know that the granularity is order, number, and item. Yeah.
Would you type in that string function between order ID and item?
So order item.
So,
Is this what you're talking about?
Yeah, would you type it between the two?
Double quotation mark, hyphen, and a double quotation mark again.
No plus sign?
Is the one key left to the enter key? Shift? You got it?
Yeah, but you had a plus sign up there between the two earlier. Is that still
Well,
there?
see, plus is how you add, that's your concatenation. So
Is
you,
it still there or not? I can't see it from here.
it is there.
Okay.
Uh,
Before or after the hyphen?
it is that. See, I have a plus here and another
I can't
plus.
see it. That's what I said. You need to move up front. I guess so.
Okay, so if you bring in, let's see. And we'll look at the data. So there are two missing row. We have to investigate that. Oh, I'm not going to do that now. But our objective was to figure out what the granularity for this data is, and that is order number and an item within the order number. So that's important to understand. It's important to understand the data set. So later on, when you're trying to do some aggregation, so you know where we are starting from.